to what's behind all this with two political experts and CNN operatives and political commentators, Democratic strategist Maria Cardona, Republican strategist Alice Stewart. Alice, let me ask you this. Are they volunteering or are they being frog marched to the cameras by the campaign?
I talked with some of the representatives of each of their teams, and they volunteered to go. They wanted to go. And look, a lot of people will question their motives, whether or not they are vying for the Veep stakes or potentially a position in the administration if Trump were to win. But the reality is, these are Republicans, these are key Republicans, and Donald Trump is the top of the ticket in 2024, and they're supporting the top of the ticket. And, you know, we heard just from Speaker Johnson right there, they all had the same message, and they've been consistent with this message. They feel, and many Trump supporters feel, that this is a sham trial. They feel it's garbage. They feel it's weaponization of the Justice Department, and feel as though Donald Trump is being targeted because he's the contender against Joe Biden, and they want to see the judge recuse himself from this. And that's clearly the message that they wanted to send themselves, and they weren't pressured by Trump.
But isn't that a feel argument rather than a factual one? Because at the same time, Hunter Biden, the president's son, is about to go on trial on federal gun charges. Democratic Senator Robert Menendez is on trial for federal corruption charges. Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas has just been charged, federal charges. By the way, all of these are federal cases, so under Biden's Justice Department, and I don't see Republicans claiming, Maria Cardona, that these are political cases. I actually don't see Democrats claiming those are political cases either.
Because Democrats understand how our justice system works and that nobody is above the law. And frankly, that Donald Trump, as the criminal defendant that he is, Republicans can't really miss that message. They are desperate to try to find a way to spin this to the American people, because there's no other way to look at a criminal defendant who has become the nominee of the Republican Party. And so what you are seeing right now is they are parading to their leader, bending the knee, kissing the ring, like lemmings, like puppets, to make sure that they know that Donald Trump understands that if he says jump, they're going to say how high. And a lot of them, many of them are, yes, vying for the VP slot, but Speaker Johnson is there to make sure to underscore to Donald Trump that he is there to do, he is at the House of Representatives to do Donald Trump's bidding. And so that will work for his supporters. It's not doing anything to add to the support from independent suburban women that Donald Trump is going to need to win.
Alice Stewart, I know to your credit, you Alice Stewart have called out a lot of this behavior by Trump. I wonder, on the surface there's bravado, right? And there's a sense among Republicans, everybody, they say, no, this is a sham. This is only going to strengthen the president's support. But we learned today that this case is almost done. Cohen's the last witness. Defense is not going to call any witnesses. We're going to be in closing arguments perhaps beginning of next week, maybe into deliberations by next week. We're going to have a verdict, and that might be a guilty verdict, right? And there might be, although I've talked to a lot of lawyers, an outside chance he goes to jail if he were to be convicted. I mean, is there deep inside the Trump campaign, is there any actual nervousness about the consequences of that politically?
Yeah, there are some that are concerned with the possibility, the remote possibility of a conviction. Because, look, the average person across this country, they're working, they're taking their kids to school, they're focused on putting food on the table and running their daily lives. They're not watching the TikTok of this court proceedings. Yeah. And they're going to basically make a decision when all is said and done. And, look, I think right now this really isn't swaying the opinion of people, but a conviction potentially could be a game changer. The concern is, you know, I've spoken with many congressmen. They say the people that call into their offices agree with them that this is overzealous prosecutors, but it's the independent voters that Donald Trump needs to be appealing to, and the suburban women that he needs to be appealing to. And look, based on what we're seeing right now in the polls, Donald Trump is ahead in 5 of the 6 battleground states. So there is the reverse consequences or intended consequence by those that are prosecuting Donald Trump. It has not hurt him in the polls to date so far.
Maria Cardona, I know you saw those New York Times swing state polls earlier this week, New York Times, Siena, and they show Trump ahead really in most, as you could see there, of those swing states, some by very large margins. I know polls go in a lot of different directions, but there has been a fairly consistent trend of Trump ahead in those swing states and really too close in the national polling. And as you know, a Democratic candidate needs to win by a few points really to have a chance of winning the Electoral College.
Right.
What's your level of nervousness?
Oh, sure, I'm nervous. Every Democrat is nervous, and we should be, because that's the only way you win. That means that you don't leave anything on the table. You're going to wake up every day to make sure that you earn the vote of every single person
but do you believe
that was
you're
in your
behind?
coalition.
That's the question.
Well,
do you believe he's behind?
Well, what I say, and you've heard me say this, Jim, is that the campaign, regardless of what they believe, they need to act like Joe Biden is 10 points behind. And what that is going to do is it's going to make them work their butts off to ensure that they are communicating the message that this president has been a good president, has brought economic growth to so many Americans, has created millions of jobs, has increased wages, has given debt relief to so many students around the country, and importantly, is the only one who's going to protect our rights and freedoms and is going to protect our democracy. Now, moving forward, it is still 6 months to the election. In this New York Times poll, Jim, if you look at the likely voters, Joe Biden is actually tied or ahead in those same swing states. And so again, polls will come and go, which is why you cannot live and breathe by every single poll. You have to look at the trends, and you have to look at other information that actually tells you where voters are, like fundraising and special elections. And those two things are telling the campaign and Democrats that the Democratic agenda is the one that American voters are the ones who are actually supporting the Democratic agenda, and that they are rejecting the MAGA extremism that Donald Trump represents.
Okay.
And that contrast is what Democrats are going to continue to focus on.
That's the argument. Alice Stewart, as you look at these numbers, read the tea leaves, etc., do you believe Trump is ahead?
Look, if the race were held today, Donald Trump would win, no questions asked, because as we all know, this is not a national election. This is a state-by-state election. And in those states, the key battleground states, Trump is not just ahead today, he has been consistently ahead. And we have the polar coaster of polls over the last several months, and we're not looking at this as a snapshot in time. This is a trend where Donald Trump continues to make ground. And the key issue here is the economy. And as much as my dear friend says the economy is good and people are satisfied, they're not. The perception by American people is that their economic situation is not better than it was when President Biden took office, and that is going to be a big factor in them deciding if it's not good under Biden, let's go back to where things were much better and gas prices were cheaper and interest rates were less, and that's going to be a big mover for voters in November.
Goodness. 6 months to go. Alice Stewart, Maria Cardona, thanks so much to both of you.
Thanks, you, Jim.